ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनम् कविभिरीडितम् कल्मषापहम् श्रवणमङ्गलम् श्रीमदाततम् भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जना. So we will continue with our study. It's on the 2nd April 1882. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting in the drawing room of Keshav Chandra Sen's house in Calcutta. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. When Keshav was told of his arrival, he came to the drawing room dressed to go out, for he was about to call on a sick friend. Now he cancelled his plan. The master said to him, "You have so many things to attend to. Besides, you have to edit a newspaper. You have no time to come to Dakshineshwar. So I have come to see you." So this is the characteristic of a bhakta. We will find that in the Narada Bhakti Sutra, it's mentioned that the devotees always aspire for the company of other devotees. And not only that, Sri Ramakrishna is not a mere devotee. He is the incarnation of the divine. It is his intense yearning. The purpose of his coming down is to make people God conscious. Seeing the people busy with their mundane existence, it is they who try to give them a spiritual turn in their life. And for that, we find that the story of the prodigal child in the Bible, so many times we repeat. The story indicates that it is not we who are aspiring for God. It is God who is yearning for us to return to the real domain of existence. That is the spiritual domain of existence. To be identified with our spiritual identity. It is He who is waiting. So that's why we find this intense yearning in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Again and again we find it is He who is going to the doors of the devotees. When He finds them to be too busy with the mundane affairs, it is He who is going to them. When they don't find time to come to Him, it is He who is going to them, meet them, and make them aware of the spiritual dimension of their existence. So you have so many things to attend to. Besides, you have to edit a newspaper. You have no time to come to Dakshineshwar. So I have come to see you. When I heard of your illness, I vowed green coconut and sugar to the Divine Mother for your recovery. I said to her, "Mother, if something happens to Keshav, with whom shall I talk in Calcutta?" So that's this. We find that in the Narada Bhakti Sutra, it is mentioned that the devotees always like the company of the devotees. This parashparam, this parashparam lopamanaha, this is the term. They constantly want to be in the company of the devotees, always want to hear about the sport of the divine. As we find, as is our nature, so we are after the company. You'll find that most of us who are in the professional field, whenever they are going to their friends, what's the thing they discuss? What's your increment? What's the salary you have? How much investment you have? That's all they discuss. Because that's the thing they like. But you see in the life of Ramakrishna, you read the entire gospel, not a single, you will find not a single sentence which is speaking, which is apart from spiritual conversation. No other mundane conversation. That's the most remarkable thing in the gospel. From the first to the last, whenever anyone visits Ramakrishna, that's the only thing he's talking about and nothing else. And that's why he's in search of a company who can relate to his spiritual dimension of existence. That's the thing which we find, that if any worldly people is in his association, he used to feel suffocated. If someone is to bring their relative who are not spiritually oriented to Dakshineshwar, Sri Ramakrishna immediately used to say, see, Rani Rashmani has built such a nice temple. You better go out, have a nice look to the temple building, have a look to the gardens, go and just roam about in the gardens. So he would never entertain to the seat there, because he knew that somehow or other they will draw in the worldly conversation. And he used to feel suffocated. Once when he was in Kashi, he had the idea that Benares is a holy city. So there all are tuned to the divine. All those who stay in Kashi must be highly spiritual. So he went with Mathur to Kashi. And there he found that Mathur had his associates, he had his other associates, and those who were acquainted to him, who were staying in Banaras, they came to meet Mathur. And in presence of Ramakrishna, they all started having worldly discussion. And Sri Ramakrishna was a wonderful person. He never had the idea of maintaining that decorum, politeness, and other things. Can you imagine, in front of all those so-called babus, suddenly he started crying loudly, wailing. What was his crying? Oh, mother, even in Kashi, you have brought me in Kashi to make me hear all this worldly conversation. So that was Ramakrishna. And Mathur immediately understood that how he was the cause of pain of Ramakrishna. So that's the wonderful thing. That's why he was always in search of a company where he could always talk of the divine. So when he found that Keshav is ill, he was very concerned. You know that when the devotees of Ramakrishna started coming, it was much later. It is Keshav who started coming to Dakshineshwar first. It is through his writings, the so-called young Bengal came to know about Ramakrishna. Keshav was regularly writing about Ramakrishna. He was so impressed by his life. It is Keshav's writing which brought in the so-called the young devotees, who later on became the monks in the name of Ramakrishna. They left their hearth and home in name of Ramakrishna. The Ramakrishna order was formed by those young band of sannyasins who came much later. So now you can understand these words, that when no devotees were coming, it's only few. And Sri Ramakrishna was always aspiring to have some divine conversation. He needed someone, and there was no one. And Keshav was the one whom he found was spiritually oriented. When he first met Keshav, there's a very interesting story. When he first met Keshav, he told him, it is only you. It was in the Brahma Samaj, prayer was going on. Other Brahmo devotees were there. And in the presence of all, Sri Ramakrishna, looking at Keshav, told something very interesting. Just few minutes back, they were all meditating. Sri Ramakrishna could scan their mind. When they came back from the meditation, Ramakrishna is immediately told that I saw only the bait of one. They were all, with the fish rod, they were sitting as if only the bait of one person has lowered, means the fish has caught it, means there's a yoga. The mind has got tuned to the divine. So that's how he's giving the example. The bait has been lowered, only one, and that is Keshav. That's how he appreciated. Others, he told, their meditation was like that of a monkey. Sometimes monkey appears, his comments used to create an uproar of laughter. See, so with simple mind, he used to say that others' meditation was like a monkey. And then he explained that what's the monkey meditation is. Sometimes monkey appears to be contemplative. as if sitting quietly, as if it is meditating. But know it for certain, it is actually planning in whose house the plantain, the bananas have ripened. So he has to go and plunder them. So that's all he's planning. So that's the most of the others' meditation was like that. Only Keshav, this bait has been lowered. The fish has caught the bet. His mind has got tuned to the divine. How nice examples he's giving. And after that, he told something very funny. Others all had an uproar of laughter. He told, only Keshav is the one whose tail has fallen off. And there was a huge uproar of laughter. Keshav immediately stopped them and told, what he's saying must be, there must be some meaning behind it. Let us ask him, let us explain what he's saying. And then what he told was very interesting. That, that the tadpoles can live only in water. The amphibians can live both in water as well as in land. But when the young one of the amphibians, the tadpoles, they can live only in water. And as tadpole, they have tail. When the tail falls off, when they grow a bit, the tail falls off, they can live both on the land as well as in water, the amphibians. So he has become a frog. Why he told that? That all others are fully immersed in worldly life. However, they may be appearing as holy person, they're praying and all, their mind is fully immersed in worldly affairs. Keshav is the one that apparently he is not a sannyasin. He lives as a householder, he lives a householder's life. He has a family. But he, like a tadpole, like a frog, can sometime keep his mind in the divine. Though he's going to the worldly affairs now and then, has to look after the newspaper, has so many other things to accomplish. But still, he has the capacity to dive deep in the divine contemplation. So he's like that frog. His tail has fallen off. And he knew the capacity of Keshav. He knew he cannot totally renounce. So Ramakrishna was a wonderful person. One day, Keshav in his prayer was saying, what he was praying, oh Lord, please make us dive deep into the ocean of your existence. Let us dive deep into the ocean of your existence. Sri Ramakrishna was having a very wonderful smile. He told Keshav, you have to edit your prayer. That's not a correct prayer. In those days, the ladies never used to come in presence of the general public. But at the same time, to attain these congregations, there was a special arrangement. There used to be some screens, transparent screens. You cannot see who is behind the screen, but they can see, the ladies can see what's going on from behind the screen. So there were some transparent screens behind which the ladies were sitting. You cannot see them, but you can infer that ladies must be there who is watching what is going on. So Ramakrishna pointed to that screen and told Keshav that if you dive deep into the water, what will happen to them? So better you just take a dip and again come out. Take a dip and come out. That's what you do. So otherwise, what will happen to them? So he knew that Keshav, though he is in world, but he had that capacity to dive deep into that spiritual contemplation. So though he couldn't renounce totally. And now Sri Ramakrishna found he is a person to whom he can tune with this divine fervor. The tremendous, the devotion, emotion which he wanted to express. Keshav was the one. So when he fell sick, when he was ill, so naturally he was concerned that if something serious happens, then with whom he will go and meet and converse. So that's why you find very interesting. When I heard of your illness, I vowed green coconut and sugar to the Divine Mother for your recovery. I said to her, Mother, if something happens to Keshav, with whom shall I talk in Calcutta? So Sri Ramakrishna spoke to Pratap and other Brahma devotees. M was seated nearby. Pointing to him, the master said to Keshav, will you please ask him why he doesn't come to Dakshineshwar anymore? He repeatedly tells me he's not attached to his wife and children. So this is the wonderful thing that draws us to Ramakrishna. Many will be asking that on the Kalpataru day, the 1st January, we find a throng of devotees in 100,000 in Calcutta will visit the place where Sri Ramakrishna became Kalpataru. So many people. And the general notion is that that's the day when Sri Ramakrishna became a wish-fulfilling tree. Whatever you ask from him, he is going to grant it. But very interesting, actually, if you really go and ask those persons, the general notion is something different. It is the love of Sri Ramakrishna that is concern for us. That one day a young devotee, Niranjan, who later became Niranjanananda, the monk, he came to Dakshineshwar. Sri Ramakrishna embraced him and started crying that when will you leave everything and give your entire life to the divine? As if it is his concern that he is not becoming more and more spiritually oriented. So this concern of Ramakrishna to awaken the God consciousness is in all, that is the thing which attracts us. See here, that the author of the gospel, the Mahendranath, was not visiting because of some family engagement for a few days. How intensely he is concerned about him. Will you please ask him? He's asking because Mahendranath was a distant relative of Keshav. So that's why he knew that Keshav knows very well Mahendranath. So he's asking Keshav to ask Mahendranath. Indirectly, he's asking him that why don't you come to Dakshineshwar? You have told me that you are not attached to your wife and children. What has happened? So that's the concern of Ramakrishna. Wonderful that you find. So Aim had been paying visits to the master for about a month. His absence for a time from Dakshineshwar called forth this remark. Sri Ramakrishna had asked M to write to him if his coming were delayed. Just see that if for some reason he cannot come, he should write. Otherwise, he was so concerned, at least by getting the letter, he will be a bit pacified. Otherwise, he was concerned that what has happened. Has he got too much involved in the worldly affairs? So if you're not coming, at least write. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is instructing him. Pandit Samadhyay was present. The Brahmo devotees introduced him to Sri Ramakrishna as a scholar well versed in the Vedas and the other scriptures. The master said, yes, I can see inside him through his eyes, as one can see the objects in a room through the glass door. Now, this is something we find a wonderful characteristic in Ramakrishna, that he could read others' mind. When the Brahmo Samaj was growing, then because of some issue, there was some division in the Brahmo Samaj. And what Ramakrishna commented was very interesting. He told Keshav that you never scan the inner being of all the throngs who come to ascribe to your faith. And that's why there's so much of turmoil, division. You cannot see, you just see the surface, the outside devotion, and that, and they all are just, enrolled in your fold. And then naturally there will be division. What Sri Ramakrishna is saying is something which he used to do. When the young boys will come, he will take the hand and weigh them. He had his own way. He will see the eyes, the shape of the chest, so many things, the physiognomy. From that, he could find out the bent of one's mind. Now, in Yoga Sutra, there is a sutra, very interesting sutra, that pratyayasya parachitta jnanam. It's one of the vibhutis, supernatural powers. Pratyaya. By doing samyam, by meditating on pratyaya, I can get the knowledge of others' mind. Chitta, parachitta, jnanam, pratyayasa. But what is pratyaya? We will find various commentators have interpreted the word pratyaya in different ways. So one of the commentators, his name is Bhojaraja. What he says is that the samya on the signs of the body, on physiognomy, just what we just now was relating to, that Ramakrishna had that capacity. By seeing the signs of your body, he could find out the bent of one person's mind. We are all psychosomatic. Even in medical science, we know that your mind is affecting our body constantly. So many diseases we develop because of our psychological aberrations. But here, what he's saying is not something, the same thing. He's just by looking at his eyes, he can as if read the mind. Now, this pratyasa parachitta jnanam, that it has been interpreted by Bhojaraja as the physiognomy, which doesn't apply here. There is another interpretation. It is the interpretation of Vachaspati Mishra. He says that samyama is this samyama on pratyaya means it is just try to read others' mind by the people's ideas and notions. By just when I am conversing with you, by just with your ideas, with your notions, I get a picture. What can your mind be? In that sense, also it is not there because he had not yet conversed with the samadhyai. There's another interpretation which is interesting, which is Vijnana Bhikshu's interpretation. That samyama means it's not reading others' mind as such. It is calming down your own mind. When you calm down your own mind, the thought which comes to your mind, know it for certain, it is the other person's thought. It's a science. In the present day, there are many animal conversationists, conversation. They can converse with animals. It is used in the modern science, that in so many people are there who go and converse with the animals. And that way, we both can live at peace. Sometimes that we encroach into we just cut the jungle forest and encroach into the territory of the animals. And naturally the animals get fierce, angry. And we find no other way. When they come and attack the so-called habitats of the people, then what happens? Previously, there was no other way. We had to kill those animals. But nowadays, those who can converse with the animals, they go. They can convince them that yes, it has happened, but now we are going to stay here. You please go at such and such place, and you will find your habitat there. And they peacefully move to the other habitat. Anna Breitenbach is one of the name. If you just search in YouTube, you will find that these persons, those who are animal conversation, they are not talking. They go and we will find a silent. Just they have the capacity to silence their mind. There is only one mind. It is the noise of our mind which doesn't allow us to relate to the other's mind. Just the way when through a projector, I'm projecting something on a screen, and someone comes and opens the doors and windows, then I see the projection is no more visible because the external light comes and it doesn't allow me to see. It shadows the projection. What it says, when I keep my eyes, my ears, all the windows open, I'm interacting with the world. My mind is full of noise. It doesn't allow me to relate to the mental vibrations of others. But if you can silence your mind, it is possible. Swami Vivekananda in Raja Yoga in one place specifically says, not in Raja Yoga, it is in Conversation that with his disciple. It's in the 7th volume, where he's saying that that this is a very simple thing to read others' mind. How to do it? Yet try to calm down your mind in the presence of the other person. And if you can really do that, suddenly you will find some thoughts arising. Know it for certain, it is the other person's thought. You can relate. So here Ramakrishna is not actually applying some supernatural power. This supernatural power comes by itself, those who have become an adept in calming down the mind. Their mind is so calm, they can easily relate to the thoughts of others. It's the third interpretation which we find is applicable here, that I can read through his eyes. There is no conversation. He has not really actually seen his physiognomy. He has not conversed with him. Just someone has just introduced him, and immediately what he's saying, yes, I can see inside him through his eyes, as one can see the objects in a room through the glass door. So this is the idea. That's why we find that you will find our senior Swamis say a very interesting thing. Suppose, that if you go to any temple, they have some hours in which the temple will be open. Say at noon, 1 o'clock, it will be closed. Again at 4 p.m. it will be open. At night after 8 or something, it will be closed. Now this Swami most probably came from some other center to visit some other center, and he came at such an hour, it's already night. The train was late, he came at night, and before going to his room which has been allotted to him, first he will go to the shrine. And we never understood. We used to say, Maharaj, the Swamiji, the shrine is closed. Why the shrine? What's the use of going to the shrine? Silently they will go outside the closed shrine. They will do pranam, and while coming back, the interesting thing they will say, yes, I cannot see him, but he is seeing me. So that's the thing to learn. That's here you just see he can as if see us, what's inside us. And we shouldn't be ashamed of that. He is there not to be angry with us for all our wrongdoings. He's like the mother. In spite of all our wrongdoings, he is there to cleanse us and to take us in his lap. So he has that capacity. He's just with his eyes, he can just through his eyes as if he can read your mind. So that's the thing he's indicating. Yes, I can see inside him through his eyes, as one can see the objects in a room through the glass door. Trailokya sang. Suddenly the master stood up and went into samadhi, repeating the mother's name. Coming down a little to the plane of sense consciousness, he danced and sang. I drink no ordinary wine, but wine of everlasting bliss. As I repeat my Mother Kali's name, it so intoxicates my mind that people take me to be drunk. First, my guru gives molasses for the making of the wine. My longing is the ferment to transform it. Knowledge, the maker of the wine, prepares it for me then. And when it is done, my mind imbibes it from the bottle of the mantra. So it's a wonderful song. These all allegoric songs where the molasses means the mantra. The Guru gives you the mantra. And the longing, unless I have a longing, that mantra is of no use. If I have a deep yearning, that I can dive deep with the mantra, deep into my meditation. And that diving deep into that meditation through that mantra can take me to that realization. Unless I have that yearning, the mantra is of no avail. It will be just, our spiritual life will be just superficial. It will never enable us to really ferment, to transform. So that's the thing is mentioned, that when that yearning is there, with that the mantra can really work wonder. It can take us to the realization. And when you come back from the realization, you are a changed person. This world is transformed. Just the way one who drinks, one is an alcoholic, after being drunk, the same world appears bit different. The same world. For him, it won't be the same world for him anymore. Suddenly you will find he's exuberant. Everything appears to be so full of joy, everything. So what has happened? That intoxication makes him look at the same world in a different way. So here also the spiritual realization, once you come back, you are no more the same person. The world will no more be the world of name and form. You will be seeing the divine everywhere. And that's what is intoxication, which you get from the realization, from the mantra. By repeating the mantra, when you go to the realization, that's the intoxication which is speaking Ram in this song is speaking of. That in our Upanishads, as they say, that when you go to that realization, when you come back, what happens? Yatra yatra mano yati, tatra tatra param padam drishyate. Wherever the mind goes, you see the param padam, the absolute reality. He's been seen everywhere. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to say very interestingly, Jatra jatra netro pade, tatra tatra Krishna sphure. Wherever my eyes fall, I see Krishna is popping up. Wherever the eyes fall, the entire world has become the manifestation of Krishna. Ramakrishna in some other place gives a very wonderful example. Just he's saying what? That after the realization, what's your perspective now? How you see the world? He says a very interesting thing. Just after a heavy rain, after a heavy downpour, just the way the entire ground, the grass fields, is soaked with water. After the realization, you see the entire existence in a similar way, soaked with consciousness. So you see that the world is nothing but the projection of the consciousness. And that's what is the intoxication from the bottle of the mantra. So you have gone to the realization, now you're totally drunk. Your perspective has changed. The world no more remains the same world. The world transforms, and it speaks of your transformation. Once you see the world in a different, from the different perspective, you can no more remain the same. As Swami Vivekananda used to say, that when I was passing through the desert as a wandering monk, I was thirsty, I was in search of water, I saw a huge reservoir. I started proceeding towards it. As I was thirsty, I wanted to drink water. And after some time, I found that the reservoir is no more there. Suddenly it vanished. And then it dawned in my mind that, oh, it's a mirage. From childhood, I have heard of it. I thought that I understood it. Intellectually, I was convinced. But for the first time, I realized, what's the difference? Now your outlook has changed. The next day, when again I am traveling, again I see the same reservoir. It's not that I won't see it anymore. But today, there's a huge transformation within me. This external transformation has brought an internal transformation. What? That today, that reservoir cannot drag me. I know it is virtual. It is not real. It has no substance as such. It cannot drag me. It has lost its power to pull me. So now you will find this intoxication, which makes you see the external world transform, results in inner transformation. It overhauls your personality. There is no more to really use my willpower to stop me being lured by the external entanglements. I'm no more lured by them. It has automatically fallen off. My total perspective has changed. My personality has been overhauled. So that's the thing which this song indicates. I drink no ordinary wine, but wine of everlasting bliss. As I repeat my mother Kali's name, it so intoxicates my mind that people take me to be drunk. First, my guru give molasses, that's the mantra, for the making of the wine. My longing is the ferment to transform it. Knowledge, that speaks of the realization, prepares it for me, prepares the wine for me then, and when it is done, my mind imbibes it from the bottle of the mantra, taking the mother's name to make it pure. Drink of this wine, says Ram Prasad, and the four fruits of life are yours. The four fruits mean dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So that all the so-called the Chatur Varga, all the Purusharthas get fulfilled when you take the name of the divine. So that's the song which Sri Ramakrishna was singing with total absorption. The master looked at Keshav tenderly, as if Keshav were his very own. He seemed to fear that Keshav might belong to someone else. That is to say, that he might become a worldly person. Looking at him, the master sang again. So there's a Bengali song which has many, the pun of words. So that in that song, let me read the song and I will indicate that what's the pun which is made with the words, and it has some inner significance. We are afraid to speak, and yet we are afraid to keep still. Our minds half believe that we are about to lose you. We tell you the secret that we know, the secret whereby we ourselves and others with our help have passed through many a time of peril. Now it all depends on you. So what's the secret here speaking of is the mantra. We will tell you the secret. That's that Ami Jani Je Mantar. The word this month, they are making pun with the word this mantra. In colloquial Bengali, the mantra is called mantar. So I know the mantra. I will give you the mantra. And now mantor. This mantra, if you break, it becomes mantor. Means now the mind is yours. So that's how they're playing pun with the word mantra. That I have given you the mantra, but the mantra which I knew. But now, after all, the mind is yours. It is up to you. That in English the proverb is that I can take the horse to the water, but I cannot make it drink. It has to drink it. So it's the mind which has to have that yearning. So what Ramakrishna is singing, that seeing Keshav so much engrossed in the worldly things, though he has a spiritual bent. So he's saying, I am very afraid that if I say that get involved in spirituality, you may be annoyed with me. You may feel that, oh, I have so many responsibilities and he's unnecessarily pestering me. So you may be just annoyed. So I'm afraid to say. And if I don't say, I'm concerned. You might get totally absorbed in worldly things. So that's why I'm afraid to sing. I'm afraid to speak. And yet we are afraid to keep still. Means not to be silent. Because I don't know how you will take my words. Our minds half believe that we are about to lose you. That seeing your way of life, I'm concerned that most probably you may get totally involved in the worldly life. So that's why whatever you may feel, I have decided to say you the secret, which I know. That's the mantra. We tell you the secret that we know, the secret whereby we ourselves and others with our help have passed through many a time of peril. So we have this secret has helped us to pass through many a peril. We will give it to you, but it all depends on you. Montor, after all, the mind is yours. How you will relate to it, it totally depends on you. So that's the song which is singing in presence of Keshav. Why is singing? Seeing Keshav so much engrossed in his worldly affairs. The one who has such a nice spiritual bent somehow is so engrossed that most probably he may lose him. He may get totally deviated. So that's why he's singing that song. Quoting the last part of the song, he said to Keshav, that is to say, renounce everything and call on God. He alone is real. All else is illusory. Without the realization of God, everything is futile. This is the great secret. See, in the Kena Upanishad, all the Upanishads speaks the same thing. Ramakrishna is actually speaking the Upanishads. Iha ched vedi datha satyam asti. Na ched evaha mahati vinashti. So if you know this, that alone is the truth. Know it for certain. This having known thus, one stays in the truth. Iha ched vedi datha satyam asti. He stays in the truth. Na chedi heva, then mahati vinashti. But if you don't know that, by not knowing that, it will result in great loss. Bhuteshu vichitya dhira pratyasman loka amrita bhavanti. So the brave one, you have to be sufficiently brave. That's this to adhere to the spiritual life needs a different type of courage. The people will be censoring you. They will be saying so much ill of you. You have to have the strength that it is not to please him. My life is please those people. If I have to please, I will please God. And for that, you need tremendous strength. You will find you are alone when you choose to be in the spiritual journey, know it for certain, it is the journey of the alone to the alone. You won't get the herd with you. If you get the herd, know it for certain, you have mixed a lot of masala, spice in your so-called spiritual endeavor. Otherwise, it's not that is so easy to really get. Whenever you find a huge herd, know it for certain, lot of pomps and glories, loaves and fishes you have added. Otherwise, this life, this pure spiritual life is something where there is no compromise. It's the journey of the alone to the alone. So it have to be sufficiently brave. The brave who realizes it in all beings and raises above the mortal world, he alone can become eternal. So that's what Ramakrishna is indicating, that renounce everything and call on God. Human birth is for that. Again and again, Sri Ramakrishna in the gospel will be stressing the need for this God realization, for developing a love for God, because that's the uniqueness of the human life. We are deluded when we think the sensuous pleasures are our goal. Because as we have indicated so many times, that however we may try, with all our advancements, with all our technology, we can never enjoy the world the way the animals enjoy. God has not equipped us for that. Just see the way the dog will be enjoying its meal. Just the way it has the power of the smelling. That's why we use them for all the detective purposes, for the crime detection. They are used. They has a tremendous power, this smell. All the animals have much more sensory power. The way they can see, the way they can hear, it's more intense. We, with all our technology, can never think of enjoying the world as intensely as an animal does. But we are deluded when we think with all our technology, the aim of our human life is to enjoy the sunset pleasures of life. We can never do. But as a human being, the uniqueness is we can think of God. We can call on God. We can love God. We can really have an idea of the divine that no other creature can have. So as a human being, if we somehow don't get motivated, oriented for calling on God, for leading a spiritual life, the human life as such is waste. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna again and again, throughout the gospel, that's the thing, he's stressing that renounce everything and call on God. He alone is real. All else is illusory. Without the realization of God, everything is futile. This is the great secret. The master sat down again and began to converse with the devotees. For a while, he listened to a piano recital, enjoying it like a child. Then he was taken to the inner apartments where he was served with refreshments and the ladies saluted him. As the master was leaving Keshav's house, the Brahmo devotees accompanied him respectfully to his carriage. Sunday, April 9, 1882. Sri Ramakrishna was seated with his devotees in the drawing room of Ramakrishna Mukherjee's house in Calcutta. It was between 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Since Colonel Vishwanath, the resident of the Nepalese government in Calcutta and a devotee of the master, lived in the neighborhood, the master intended to visit him before going to see Keshav at the Lily Cottage. A number of neighbors and other friends of Ramakrishna had been invited to meet Sri Ramakrishna. They were all eager to hear his words. Master, God and his glory. The universe is his glory. People see his glory and forget everything. They do not seek God, whose glory is this world. All seek to enjoy woman and gold. So this is the thing Sri Ramakrishna will be repeating again and again, that all are engrossed in Kamini Kanchana, woman and gold. Literal translation, from the literal translation, we will say, oh, Ramakrishna is a misogynist. He hates the woman. But the real meaning is something which we have to understand. The woman devotees who used to visit Ramakrishna, he used to say that be away from the male devotees. He never allowed the men and women to intermingle. It's here he's saying woman. When he's addressing the men, he's speaking of woman. When he's speaking to the woman, he's speaking of men. What he's actually speaking, it's not the woman or the men. He's actually speaking of lust, not men and women. It is the lust. So what is speaking of lust and gold. As we told that what are these two things? That in this world, why these are the strongest cause of our bondage? That the mind is befooling us. So many times we have told how he has befooled us. What are the things which we like intensely? The thing out of necessity which we do again and again. Even in the modern science, they say that the mind has a neuroplasticity. What you do again and again, the mind as it creates a path. For that endeavor, as it creates a path. And once the path is created, the mind now forgets the purpose. Just to do it becomes its pleasure. All the things which we like are actually the repetitive action which we have done out of necessity. So here you will find, even as a bacteria, small bacteria, with that, a small microbe, with that, what's common with us? Only two things. To sustain, it needs food, and to sustain it needs food, and it cannot live through eternity. To continue its existence, it has to procreate. So these are the two basic things which have started when the life started. Out of necessity, we procreate, and we have to sustain ourselves, we have to have need food. This need of food as a human being has converted into gold. Unless you have money, you cannot just have food. So the gold speaks of sustenance, woman or lust speaks of procreation. What has happened? The necessity, these are two basic necessity, without which there cannot be life. That has become a compulsion. Because through the entire process of evolution, these are the two things we had to do out of necessity. And it has created such a strong groove that we are obsessed by it. You open the newspaper, everyday crime, at last it boils down to this two, nothing else. Nothing else at last. You may say in the name of religion, the fanatics are killing people. At last, you know what's the reason? Even in Bangladesh, the recent thing which has happened, I will give you a fact. The Hindus hold the lands. Now it has dwindled. They were the one who were the prosperous. They hold the land. In the name of religion, they were killed. It is for the gold. It is not for the name of religion. Nothing, it has to do nothing with the religion. Just to get the land illegally, unlawfully, in the name of religion, this sabotage is going on again and again, again and again. So these are the things which should, all the things you can, the entire world, in the name of religion, all the barbarism is going on. At last, it ends up in woman and gold. If you really know the reason behind it, you will know it for certain that it at last ends up in woman and gold. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. All the war with this in the name of religion, fanaticism. At last, you will find it has to do this either with lust or with gold. Nothing else. We just use the religion as the mask, but actual intention is behind that. What has happened? The necessity has become an obsession. It has become an obsession, and all the crimes in the world at last ends up because of that obsession. So when he says that all are seeking for that, it's just not a misogynism. He's speaking the basic fact of life, as has been spoken of in the Upanishad. Paranchi khani vyatrinat swayambhu tasmat parang pashyati nantaratman kaschid dhira pratyagatmanikshat avritta chakshu amritatvam icchan. In a poetic way, the Upanishad says, when the Lord has created us, he has inflicted injury in our senses in such a way that they are bound to look outwards. They never look within. Paranchi khani vyatrinat swayambhu. Khani means these indriyas. Kha means the ears. By ears, it actually indicates all the indriyas. Paranchi means outwards, parak. That this all the indriyas have been injured in such a way, it is always looking outwards. Tasmat parak pashyati, na antaratman. That's why we are always engaged in the external, never try to live within. Kaschid dhira. It's only a few, the dhira, the calm one, the wise, who to know the essence of our being. Pratyagatman. This parak and pratyak, these are wonderful words. Parak means going outward, pratyak, going within. So the pratyagatman. So just to find out what is within, avritta chakshu, to close their eyes. Why? Amritatvam ichchan. To attain that this immortality, to attain the eternal, eternity, immortality. It's a wonderful sloka, which wonderful mantra, which can be related to these words of Ramakrishna. That, there is someone as if sitting in your heart, the core of your being, the essence of your being can be realized there. But we never realize something is there. Why? Because there are two gets that in the Upanishads, there's a poetic way they say that this, what you say, that this in the Puri, in this city of this body, Navadware Pure Dehi, this, the one who is residing in this city, he is not seen. Why he is not seen? Because there are two gates. If you go to any jail, you will find there are two gates. Any jail or even in ICU, there are two doors. You know why? To avoid the infection to go in, or just to, when you open the first door, the second door must be closed. Between the two doors, there are some disinfectants and other things kept. You have to apply them and get sufficiently sanitized, and then only you can open the second door, making sure the first door is closed. The first door is open. When it is open, the second door should be closed. You have entered between the two, both the doors are closed. You sanitize yourself properly. Then ensuring that the external door is closed, you open the second door. Both the doors are never opened together. So know it for certain, the one who is within can never be realized as long as these external doors are all open. We sometimes don't know the significance of the rituals which we do. If you go to any of this Hindu temples, when the offering is done, you will find this, the sanctum doors are closed, and many of the sanctum will have 9 doors. The 9 doors actually indicates the 9 apparatus: 2 eyes, 2 ears, 4, 2 nostrils, 6 the mouth, 7 and the organ of excretion and the organ of procreation, another 2. So this is 9. So 9 outlets are there. So that's why there will be 9 doors around the sanctum sanctorum. Now, when you have to offer anything to the divine, means you have to relate to the one who is within the sanctum sanctorum, these doors are closed. What's the idea? The same idea. This temple actually is a personification of a human being. It represents us. To relate to the divine, first you have to close these doors, the external doors. Otherwise, you can never relate, cannot never commune with the one who is sitting within. And that's what Ramakrishna is saying. God and his glory. With external eyes, with the ears, what I am seeing as the external world is all glory. The universe is his glory. People see his glory and forget everything. Why? That God has inflicted our senses in that way. They do not seek God, whose glory is this world. It is he who is being projected as the world. All seek to enjoy woman and gold. But there is too much misery and worry in that. This world is like the whirlpool. Just see the same example he's giving, the example of obsession. We come out of necessity, we do something, and then we find we have got obsessed by it. So he's saying that the world is like a whirlpool of Vishalakshi. It is a small stream near Ramakrishna's birthplace. Now the stream has many whirlpools. So once the boat gets into it, there is no hope of its rescue. You got bound with that. You cannot go out of it. You get stuck up, and that will be the cause of your death. So that's what the senses are doing with us. They're taking us, what you say, that spirally, just it is taking us down and down, just like a whirlpool. So again, the world is like a thorny bush. You have hardly freed yourself from one set of thorns before you find yourself entangled in another. Once you enter a labyrinth, you find it very difficult to get out. Living in the world, a man becomes scared, as it were. So that's the thing, which says there's not only one desire, thousands of desires. When Sri Ramakrishna one day went to the bank of the Ganges to see, in those days the Howrah Bridge was not there. He just saw a floating bridge which was made of innumerable boats. All the boats were were anchored to the bank with long ropes. Innumerable boats were there, and that's how the people used to cross the river, over those floating boats. The bridge was yet to be constructed. And seeing those boats tied to the bank with, anchored to the bank with innumerable ropes, immediately the Ramakrishna, the master of example, what a wonderful example he's giving. He's saying that you just cut one of the rope, nothing happens to the bridge. Nothing happens to the bridge. The bridge still remains intact because there are so many other ropes to keep it intact. You cut one rope, nothing happens. So in the entire process of evolution, so many mental modules we have developed as per our likings and dislikings. The thing which nourishes me, that created an attachment. The thing which sustains me, that created an attachment. The thing which was not favorable for me, not pleasurable for me, which was the cause of my death, my disintegration, I developed hatred. And all these likings and hatreds created separate, innumerable mental modules. If I find that one of the mental modules has created a tremendous obsession for me, with a lot of my effort, somehow I may get rid of that obsession. But you will find thousands others are waiting. So as if you are in a whirlpool, there is no way out. So what's the way out? Not to get rid of them one by one. You can never do that. Call on God. How it helps us? All the mental modules are linked with the idea of this limited I, that I am this body-mind complex. The thought of the God immediately helps you to transcend that idea. I am the eternal spirit. God is eternal. I am associated with him through eternity. This body falls off. It is not my real existence. So this is the idea of the God immediately helps you to negate your ego, to which all the other mental modules are are attached. Just the way the spikes of the wheel are attached to the hub. If one spike breaks, the wheel is still intact. But if I get rid of the hub, the entire wheel collapses. The hub is the ego. And that has to be got rid of by the thought of the divine. Once we can do that, all the spikes fall at a time. I cannot get rid of them one by one. So that's the thing, Sri Ramakrishna, how nicely he's indicating with his example. God and his glory, this universe is his glory. God sees his glory and forget everything. They do not seek God, whose glory is this world. All seek to enjoy woman and gold, but there is too much misery and worry in that. This world is like the whirlpool of the Vishalakshi, a stream near Ramakrishna's birthplace. Once a boat gets into it, there is no hope of its rescue. Again, the world is like a thorny bush. You have hardly freed yourself from one set of thorns before you find yourself entangled in another. Once you enter a labyrinth, you find it very difficult to get out. Living in the world, a man becomes scared, as it were. A devotee. Then what is the way, sir? Master, prayer and the company of holy men. You cannot get rid of an ailment without the help of a physician. But it is not enough to be in the company of religious people only for a day. You should constantly seek it, for the disease has become chronic. Again, you cannot understand the pulse rightly unless you live with a physician, moving with him constantly, you learn to distinguish between the pulse of phlegm and the pulse of bile. So these are the Ayurvedic treatment in which with the reading the pulse, they could find out what the exact disease is. But what it is saying, that it's not just going to the holy man for once. You have to associate with him on regularly. How it helps, we will give another example that how it helps. I was in Narottam Nagar. It's a Arunachal Pradesh, a tribal belt. When I went there, they were the first generation learners. They were in extremely this poor family, then extreme poverty. From there, we used to bring the children. They had no idea that what education can do in their life. They were leading that type of life for ages. Now, when we used to bring them, I saw a very interesting thing. That people coming from that background, when they were brought to the hostel to stay there, the hostel dining hall was like a 5-star hotel. The dining table with the foods kept in the center, there was a towel. In the winter season, there was some warm water to wash their hand. And I was really, you can say, surprised that these boys coming from that poor background, what's the need for all this lavish treatment? And then it was explained, the one who founded the school, he had a wonderful idea in his mind. What? That these children have no idea that what education can do in their life. That the way their lifestyle can totally change. Forget about spirituality. Spirituality will come later. For these people who are totally engrossed in poverty, that what education can do, they have no idea. Give them the test of that type of life, which education can bring them. Now they will aspire for it. Once they get the test of this type of life, they will aspire for it, and they will know education is the only way. So you won't have to insist them that themselves, and it was a wonderful theory. There are so many IAS officers which has been produced from that school. Engineers, doctors, every year. If this 20, 30 students are passing out in the higher secondary, almost all of them get chance in some good institutions. Why? That philosophy really worked. Why we are just giving this example here? When you go to a holy person, you cannot relate to his holiness, that he is constantly contemplating on the divine. Those things I'm yet to relate to. But what I can relate is that he's a wonderful, peaceful person, childlike person, and nothing can worry him. All the so-called things, the small things in the life, nothing worries him. We are such a social creature. We cannot stay without the company of others. But the moment I go in search of others' company, I find there is only comparison. And I get frustrated. Can I not relate with my heart? And here I find there is no comparison. You come, all are accepted as the same. He is relating to that person every with that equipoise, equanimity, love, compassion. These are the things which you get attracted to. And naturally, we all feel that we get that awe, inspiration comes, that awe comes. Oh, if I could have become like him, my life would have changed. What a pitiable, like a beggar I am living. With all my wealth, actually I'm a beggar. I have no such qualities which can give me peace. The wealth are of no use. That's why nowadays we find that they say that very rich person, that he's an extremely rich person, is being called, he's extremely poor. Why is poor? He has nothing apart from wealth. Only wealth he has, nothing he has. Peace, no. That the good character, so that with that he can really entail peace, no, nothing he has, only wealth. So such a poor person he is. And here you find a real rich person. He may have no so-called wealth, but all the wealth which is required for the well-being, he has. And that attracts you. And that attracts you. And just that the way that the lavishness attracted you to education for those tribal boys, here, the lavishness of all the spiritual qualities, that now takes you towards God. That yes, now you find that what has transformed him is the thought of the God. That alone has transformed him. And now you also want to aspire to be like him. And that's why the holy company. And that's why it needs to be regularly with him as much as possible. Because then only you get totally dyed with all the attributes which he has. That's the thing he's saying, the prayer and the company of holy men. You cannot get rid of an ailment without the help of a physician. But it is not enough to be in the company of religious people only for a day. You should constantly seek it, for the disease has become chronic. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. So you will find his words are so one plain and simple, but it speaks of the entire psychology of our spirituality in simple words, very profound. Sometimes the simple words makes us miss the point. The words are so simple, just we get carried by the simple words, and we can never delve into the depth of it. It has transcended the Upanishad, the Vedas, his words. It has such a tremendous depth. So that's why to study the gospel again and again is very, very essential. It should become a regular study, so that you will find that the layers of meaning is opening up. When you reading for the first time, one way you understood. The next time you'll find that your ideas are becoming more and more clear. And that's why it's our lifelong companion. Then this book can never become old. They are the Puranas, Pura Api Navaiva. That's why these old books are called Puranas. They're ever aging, never old. They always find some context in our life in one way or other. So we'll continue with our discussion again in the next class. With this, we stop our discussion today. That next Thursday, we are not going to have our regular class in Mundaka Upanishad, as I have already mentioned, and most probably you have already got the notice that the invitation that we are going to have an online Kali Puja. So you're all invited to join online the Kali Puja celebration on Thursday, which will be from 6:30 and it will end at 9:15. So you all are requested to join online the celebration and seek the blessing of the divine. Thank you all. Namaskar.